Hello, welcome to Sacred Stories. I'm Rev Patricia Caginello, the host of this podcast, and today I'm so excited because we're speaking with one of our new authors, Jennifer Murphy-Moracle. Jennifer, we have just released her book, her children's book, beautifully illustrated children's book called What Do the Animals Say? So a little bit about Jennifer is she is an accomplished author, an intuitive, and a mother of 2 children. During her childhood years, Jennifer began communicating with nature and embraced the spiritual world. Her published works to date embrace the philosophy that the universe is loving and supportive to all of us. Our new book, What Do the Animals Say?, addresses the belief that animals are communicating with us and we can open our hearts to listen. Jennifer's inspiration comes from her connection with the divine, love of the outdoors, animals, children, and the beautiful state of Montana. Jennifer can often be found hiking the mountains with her 2 labs, Bailey and Reese. It is such a pleasure to say welcome to Sacred Stories, Jennifer Murphy-Moracle.
Thanks, Patricia, for having me. I'm really looking forward to talking to you today about the book.
I'm just so thrilled and honored that Sacred Stories has published What Do the Animals Say? It is it's a beautiful book. It is beautifully illustrated, and the messages and the connections for the children and the parents, for all of us, to the natural world, I think are beautifully demonstrated in the book and so important, for all of us.
Yes, we run into animals every day. They're part of our life here. And when I started writing this manuscript, it was last summer, and I was actually writing something totally different. And every day I would see a different animal and I would intuitively get a thought. And I was directed to write this children's book based on that summer and seeing the animals. And so I started to leave my other manuscript alone and started to write What Do the Animals Say for the children. And when I wrote it, I would see an animal and I would intuitively get a message from that animal and what it would want to say in the book. And when I was working on the manuscript and almost finished, I took a ride. I went with some friends and we rented snowmobiles and we went through Yellowstone Park, through West Yellowstone in the middle of winter. And it's really beautiful there, and you can see a lot of animals or see no animals. And that day, our guide who took us out there said that she couldn't believe how many animals we saw that day. We saw the oldest alpha female wolf in the park that is very elusive and does not come out much. We saw plenty of bison and elk and trumpeter swans and eagles. And when I was riding back in the snowmobile back to West Yellowstone, I got the hit that all those animals showed up for a reason that day, and the reason was they wanted to be in the book. They wanted us to understand that they have messages too besides the other animals I wrote about. So the last page of the book highlights a lot of animals that I saw that day. So that was really transforming for me in terms of I realized there are so many animals out there and so many have messages, and so the last page kind of highlights that thought. So.
Thank you for sharing that personal story. I love the stories behind the stories. It's such a richness, and I think that brings your book and all the animals alive even more, knowing that. And you have such a special connection with the natural world and with the animals, with nature in general. Share a little bit more with our audience your sacred story. Like, who is Jennifer Murphy-Moracle, and where did this connection come from?
It started when I was very young. I spent a lot of time outdoors. I was just drawn to the outdoors, and I don't know, and I still am. I don't want to be in a building very often. In the wintertime, Montana is kind of hard, but I grew up in California, so I was able to be outside year-round, and I would spend some days just sitting in a tree by myself watching people come and go. They wouldn't even know it by the front door of our house that I would be there in the tree. My family also had this little Japanese flower garden on the side that had a bridge and a pond, and We had a statue of Mother Mary back there, and I would spend many hours out there in the shrubs, in the ivy, and then just sitting outside. And I was able to bring home every animal you could think of. I brought home. There was a farm near our house. I grew up fairly rural, and I would just bring home animals all the time, and I was able to keep them. And I realized when I would go to school, I would want to go home, and I just would have to decompress. Now the words decompress, but I knew that I had to just recharge, and where I spent it was just outside, and it was a solace for me as a child. It was some place I could go and feel comfortable and just feel the comfort and love of nature. And because of that, I started understanding that nature is very important to me, and I feel to others too. And if you're in a place of your life where you don't incorporate nature into your soul, then I hope that this book kind of introduces it or plants a seed to children or parents that nature and the animals are part of us, and they're also here with us to support us on our journey on earth. And that's kind of how I started as a young child, and then have always incorporated into my life.
I love that you can go all the way back to childhood, and as a child, I think we're much more intuitive, or we really open up to what speaks to us a lot more. And I love that as a child that you honored that within yourself intuitively, and that you kept it into your adulthood. Many people seem to lose that natural connection to self and all that is, nature and the animals being part of it. Was it hard at any point? Did you lose that connection and have to regain it? I'm asking that because I feel that happens to so many adults and parents who are listening who may have children who they want to help their child keep that connection or deepen that connection. So if you could share a little guidance around how as an adult you still have that connection, that would be so helpful.
Well, I have an interesting story behind that too. I did lose connection as an adult. I started working in the corporate world and wanted to be very successful, and I felt that I was stressed a lot. And I came on a mountain bike trip in my late 20s up to Montana and really felt another connection to nature. And the Bay Area got really big and huge, and so I realized how nature is very important. But I also still stayed very heavily in the corporate world, and what happened is my father passed away. And this is a very interesting story because after he passed away, I was not connecting with my spiritual guidance. I felt like I was just really planted in the corporate world, and I had a dream, and he came to me in a dream, and it was a letter. It was like at the end of the story of Pinocchio when the fairy has that letter that drifts down and Pinocchio reads the letter. It was like that, but it was from my father. And it said, where I am is beautiful beyond words. He said, you need to focus less on your physical life and more on your spiritual life. And then he said, I'm on an assignment in Copenhagen, which I was like, I don't know what that means, but I did discover 10 years later what that meant. So because of him transitioning in that letter, I started to understand that I needed to reconnect with my spiritual side of me, and it began again in nature. I started taking hikes and connecting back to God and the divine, how it soothes me, and it was through nature. And so that's kind of how I started back. And having children of my own, and they were 1 and 2 when my father passed away, I thought to myself, well, when I'm gone, what can I give my children in solace? And so that's one of the books I wrote, what I believe, thoughts for them if I'm not around, to help them get through life. And then I started focusing on more children's books, and What Do the Animals Say is one of those focuses. I think I really wanted to support children on their life and support parents helping their children stay connected to the divine and not lose the connection, which it did happen to me.
What a beautiful, beautiful gift from your father. What a special gift of love. I mean, you share that story, and I think about the deep connection with your father that you have, and how he came through for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was a really good cheerleader in my corner and always was supporting me, and I think that's why, because of his love and support, it also sent me to write books to love and support other children in case they don't have it. And I have been around extended family or friends that don't have that support of the family like I did with my father, and so I always think, well, at least I can write something down for children that don't even have that. And children that have supportive parents are very lucky, but there's other children out there that don't. So I always think maybe the book will help them too when they read it, if they don't get it through a parent.
I love that. I love that on so many levels. There's so much support and so much connection, right? So you've spoken about the connection with your dad and how he's come through. You've spoken about how the animals have shown up for you. Nature, even just sitting in the tree, I'm sure you had a special connection with the tree or the energies that are all around us. And it's really heartening to be able to know and to share with others through your work and even through this interview that these connections are really real, that the energies are here and we are supported. And would you agree with that?
Oh, yes, I would agree with that. And I think the children's book and all my other work just tries to introduce the idea that you can recognize the connection. Just, listen with your heart, spend some quiet time alone, talk to God, talk to who you pray to, and ask for more divine guidance and connection and awareness. I always say, you don't need to hit me over the head really hard, but can you kind of give me some guidance? Because sometimes I think the universe can be subtle and not so subtle. So I always go, could I have a little subtlety instead of being hit too hard? So I do think on an everyday basis, every day the universe is communicating to us via animals, angels, people. I think the divine speaks through people. Sometimes they don't even know they're speaking that special message for you. So I think it's everywhere, daily for us.
Yeah, and your book is so beautiful too. So your book Speaks, the new book, What Do the Animals Say? It's a picture book, beautifully illustrated book, and it really does give the gift of the connection and relationship to the animals. And let's talk about a couple animals in the book, right? So
okay.
Let's talk about maybe, not that we want to pick favorites, but in general, when you were writing the book, right, I think it's important, to get a little bit of the inside of the author's brain. When you were writing the book and the animals were coming to you, are there any animals that you feel a special affinity to, or even just the illustrations in the book that you especially love because they're so beautiful?
Oh, I know. The illustrator did a really beautiful job. When you ask me that question, the two animals that come to my mind are the hippo, because I just think the hippo is so cute. And I love the hippo on the back side of the cover. And, hippopotamuses can be mean, and they have that, the general natural role they could be. But for some reason, in the illustration of the book, and it says the hippopotamus says, it's important to learn how to swim. My daughter had a friend who did not know how to swim, and that fear stopped him from exploring certain parts of life. And so, not that caused me to write that story, it's just coming to my mind right now. So I think for children learning how to swim, it creates less fear, so then they can go out in the world and do other things that are more fearless too. So I love the hippo. I think the hippo is very sweet. And the other animal that I resonate a lot with is the elephant. And I think they're just gentle giants on this earth, and I love the stories about how they are families important to them, how they all help each other. And I think I resonate with that a lot too, because family is important to me, and I have extended friends that are family, and we all help and support each other. And I just love the visual of the heart on the elephants. The cover is really beautiful too. I love the cover because the sun is basically an extension of God and the divine, and all the animals are coming out of the rays of the sun, and so they're all represented by God, the divine, and an extension of that. So I like how the cover, in my opinion, communicates that to the owners of the book too. So.
It's really, there is a lot of symbolism embedded in the book and in the illustrations, the cover being a great example. And I love that definitely was a communication from your heart. You wanted the sun on the cover, and for that reason. And I do believe that it's a beautiful invitation to others to embrace all the animals and to realize that the animals are all we're all part of the divine, without a doubt. I love the idea of the hippo saying it's important to learn how to swim, to give children who maybe do have a fear around that or other things that courage. So in addition to your book introducing or opening up the invitation to the children that the animals are an important part of their world and they can have special relationships and connections with them, they can also draw courage or comfort or support or many different things from the animals in the book, similar to what you said. I hadn't even considered that prior to you telling the hippo story.
Yeah, I think, for example, the horse says, stay on the trail of your dreams. It's a supportive comment. It's telling the children, you have dreams, and don't lose sight of those dreams. And in everyday life, sometimes we get distracted. There's circumstances that arise, and even parents read it to their children. Parents might have dreams that they've set aside, that reading this book to their child will help them understand, I still have some dreams too that I wanted to accomplish. And so besides the children, I think it resonates with any type of reader. So that's just one thought there for support. And also the go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just going to say that yeah, it's really, really beautiful. It's a beautiful gift on so many levels. So in my own way as the publisher of the book, I was so excited to publish it because I feel very strongly about animal symbolism and animal totems, and that's where my journey started, in my spiritual journey, and my opening really to the awe or the fullness of the divine was through animal symbolism. And so that's why I was so excited and honored to have Sacred Stories publish What Did the Animals Say? And now I'm sitting here just completely falling in love with the whole book all over again, looking at it from the perspective of what you're saying, of the encouragement and support and love that is coming through the messages on a whole other level for the children and parents or adults that are reading it. It's really beautiful, Jennifer.
Well, thanks. And I think another philosophy behind this book is a lot of us do forget. We forget our connection with the divine because life gets busy. And I want this book to plant a seed of memory for those who are reading it, a memory of maybe when you were younger and how you were connected to the animals, or a memory of children before they came here on earth, of how an understanding of how we are all one, we are all interrelated and connected. And so that was one of my desires too behind this book, is to encourage the philosophy of as we're all one and plant the seed of remembering that too.
Right, the relationship. When you're speaking, I'm writing the word relationship and community, right? So to be extending beyond not only our human family, but into the natural world, right? And with the animals. So the co-creation, the relationship with the animals. I think that's so important, and I just feel really strongly about saying this. I think it's really important in honoring of the animals, in honoring of Mother Earth and the world that is around us, because I think when we can show up in relationship with other beings and all that is, I think we show up on a different way. I think we show up in a way that is more honoring, right? A way that is more supportive in every aspect of our lives. And so I believe that What Do the Animals Say, this book that you've written that is, again, so beautifully illustrated. I believe it's a really beautiful gift to the world, to humanity. It says that, it shares that. It allows people, even if they're not fully aware of what they're doing, the way that the book is presented allows people to be able to be in relationship differently, maybe than they were before.
Yeah, I agree with you. And to look at each relationship differently, and I don't know why, but I also think about when you think about how we're all interconnected with the animals and with individuals, and you're right, you can look at situations differently, you can look at occurrences differently, and then you take it to heart more you take it to your heart instead of to your mind. And I think that's why at the end of the book, one of the last ones is, love with your big heart for the elephants, because really that's one of the essence of being integrated with everybody, is if you came from your heart and expressed everything from your heart, you would experience life differently too.
Yeah. And as one parent to another, and a shout out to all the parents that are listening, when my children were little, this book, they would have just been loving it. We would have been reading this every night. However, I have to say, the beautiful part is, as a parenting tool, right, to say, oh, but remember the hippo says, you should learn how to swim, or remember the horse says, believe in yourself and your dreams, or you know what I mean? Like, as a parenting tool, like I'm sitting here going, oh my gosh, I could have so used this and said, oh, let's go brush our teeth like this animal said, right?
Yeah.
The crocodile, right. The crocodile talks about taking care of your teeth. So parents, if you have trouble with your kids maybe wanting to brush your teeth, the crocodile in the book says it's important to take care of your teeth. So on a completely day-to-day, time for bed, got to get the kids ready for bed, and they need to eat well, and they need to brush their teeth, and they need to, whatever you need them to do. The animals are also supporting you. So, and it's a beautiful parenting tool at the end of the day too, right, Jennifer? It's full of gifts, on many levels.
That's right. I have a daughter. When she was little, she just loved sugar. I mean, anything she could get her hands on was sugar. And so the bee says, remember, honey's better for you than sugar. And I wish I had that book when I could say that to Elle when she was little.
Yeah, right?
Yes, and the cheetah wants you to exercise more. And exercise is so important. And sometimes children don't have the opportunities like we used to. And so just reminding them to get out and get some fresh air and get that, your creative juices and fresh air to your brain. It's good for you. So.
Yeah, so What Do the Animals Say? A brand new, beautifully illustrated children's book by Jennifer Murphy-Moracle not only can help you and your children decompress, recharge by connecting with nature more, right? We started the conversation with that, and it can offer words of support and encouragement, knowing that we have greater relationships not only with each other but with the animals in the natural world, right? Opens us up to our connection with the divine and the honoring of those relationships. We can show up in relationship differently and teach our children to show up in relationship differently in an honoring way. And it can help you get your kids to brush your teeth and eat healthy and exercise and do all the wonderful things that as parents, sometimes you feel like you're twisting their arm to do. It can do that too, all wrapped up in this one beautiful book, What Do the Animals Say by Jennifer Murphy-Moracle. It's really phenomenal, Jennifer. I'm falling in love with this book all over again just in this conversation.
Oh, thanks. I get such really good feedback from everyone who's looked on it on Amazon, the cover, and people are excited for it. And I really think people can connect to animals. They do. We started when we were young, and we still love them as adults.
So the final shout-out to the parents and the children. What would you like or hope the parents and the children will receive from reading your book? What's from your heart, your gift to them?
Well, I hope the children and parents receive an understanding and connecting with the divine and God through the animals and the world of nature. I hope that they understand that they are here as our support system on earth to help us every day. And I hope that it creates a loving presence in their life to help them on a daily basis.
It's absolutely beautiful. So What Do the Animals Say? A brand new children's book by Jennifer Murphy Moracle, illustrated by Holly Levine. Holly is a phenomenal illustrator. We'll give a shout out to Holly. It's available through Sacred Stories Publishing, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, pretty much booksellers worldwide. So we hope that you will take a look at What Do the Animals Say, and we hope that parents everywhere and their children just have hours and hours of beautiful reading enjoyment and connection with What Do the Animals Say. Jennifer Murphy Moracle, thank you so much for being with us today on Sacred Stories. Thank you for sharing your special connection with the animals and nature, with the world, through your beautiful books. What Do the Animals Say is one of them. Check out, Jennifer, share your website so people know how to find you also, in addition to finding you on Sacred Stories Media and Sacred Stories Publishing.
Thanks, Patricia. My website is jmurphymoracle.com. You can find me on the web there, and it's just starting launch, so it's exciting for me and exciting for my partnership with you guys. So I appreciate your support through this process.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautiful, beautiful work by Jennifer Murphy Moracle. So everyone, thank you so much for listening. Check out What Do the Animals Say. This podcast is Sacred Stories. You can find us on Sacred Stories Media, find us on iTunes, and Sacred Stories Publishing. We have a host of really beautiful children's books and many other types of books for you to enjoy. So until next time, as always, thank you for joining us, and remember to write your sacred story well.